Welcome to the podcast Camp David Peace Accords, Jimmy Carter, Anwar Sadat, and Menachem Begin by Doug West. In this podcast, we journey through one of the most extraordinary diplomatic achievements of the 20th century, the Camp David Peace Accords. This is a story of three leaders, Jimmy Carter, Anwar Sadat, and Menachem Begin, who came together to achieve what many thought was impossible, a lasting peace agreement between Egypt and Israel. Let's set the stage. The Middle East of the 20th century was a region plagued by conflict, particularly between Israel and its Arab neighbors. At the heart of the tensions was a territorial dispute over the Sinai Peninsula and long-standing hostilities that erupted in several wars. It all began with the Six-Day War of 1967, where Israel launched preemptive airstrikes against Egyptian forces. The war resulted in a decisive Israeli victory, with Israel gaining control of the Sinai Peninsula, among other territories. The swift and overwhelming nature of this conflict left a profound impact on the region and planted the seeds for future confrontations. In 1973, tensions erupted once again in what became known as the Yom Kippur War. Led by Egypt and Syria, a coalition of Arab states attacked Israel, seeking to reclaim lost territory. This war ended inconclusively but allowed Egypt to regain some of the Sinai Peninsula. U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger helped broker a peace accord to end the war, setting the stage for further negotiations. By 1977, the relationship between Israel and Egypt had begun to thaw. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat made history by visiting Jerusalem and speaking before the Israeli Knesset, marking the first official visit by an Arab leader to Israel. In his speech, Sadat emphasized the importance of making bold decisions to achieve a lasting peace. His actions laid the groundwork for what would become the Camp David Accords. Each leader at Camp David brought a unique perspective shaped by their personal histories and political careers. Anwar Sadat, born in 1918 near Cairo, rose through Egypt's military and political ranks. A participant in the 1952 revolution that overthrew King Farouk, Sadat became a close ally of Gamal Abdel Nasser. After Nasser's death in 1970, Sadat assumed the presidency, determined to modernize Egypt and establish its place on the global stage. Menachem Begin, born in 1913 in Brest-Litovsk, then part of the Russian Empire, now Belarus, had a vastly different background. A devoted Zionist, Begin's early life was marked by hardship, including imprisonment by Soviet authorities. After arriving in Palestine, he became a leader in the fight for Israeli independence and later served as prime minister. His deeply rooted belief in Israel's security informed his approach to the negotiations. President Jimmy Carter, the third figure at the table, played a pivotal role as mediator. Elected in 1976, Carter had made Middle East peace a priority, believing it was a moral imperative. Camp David, the presidential retreat in Maryland, offered a secluded and neutral setting for the talks. The Camp David negotiations, which began in September 1978, were intense and often fraught with tension. Sadat and Begin had significant ideological differences, with each leader representing deeply entrenched national interests. Carter worked tirelessly to bridge the divide, meeting separately with each leader when direct dialogue broke down. After 13 days of discussions, the leaders reached an agreement. The Camp David Accords consisted of two frameworks. The first established a roadmap for peace between Egypt and Israel, while the second outlined a plan for Palestinian autonomy. The treaty included several key provisions. Egypt and Israel recognized each other as legitimate nations and ceased hostilities. Israel committed to a complete withdrawal from the Sinai Peninsula, while Egypt agreed to keep the region demilitarized. Israeli ships gained free passage through the Suez Canal, and international waterways like the Strait of Tiran were recognized. In March 1979, Sadat and Begin signed the treaty in Washington, D.C., marking a turning point in Middle Eastern history. For their efforts, Sadat and Begin were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1978. The Camp David Accords had far-reaching implications. For the first time, an Arab state formally recognized Israel's legitimacy, and Israel accepted the principle of exchanging land for peace. However, the agreement also had significant consequences for Sadat. His decision to make peace with Israel led to Egypt's temporary isolation in the Arab world and increased domestic opposition. Tragically, in 1981, Sadat was assassinated by Islamic radicals during a military parade. His death shocked the world, and leaders from around the globe, including former U.S. presidents and Israeli Prime Minister Begin, attended his funeral. Menachem Begin also faced challenges after Camp David. While the treaty solidified his legacy, he struggled with political and personal difficulties in the years that followed. He resigned as prime minister in 1983 and spent his remaining years in seclusion. The Camp David Accords remain a cornerstone of Middle Eastern diplomacy. Despite the challenges and controversies, the treaty demonstrated that peace is possible, even in the most divided regions. The agreement reshaped geopolitics, setting a precedent for future negotiations and proving that dialogue and compromise can achieve what war cannot. Thank you for joining us on this look into the Camp David Peace Accords. This story is a testament to the power of leadership, courage, and the enduring pursuit of peace. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the pivotal moments in history that continue to shape our world. Additional resources are provided in the description for those eager to dive deeper into this fascinating chapter. If you found this podcast insightful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who love history. I'd also love to hear your thoughts. What lessons do you think we can draw from the Camp David Peace Accords? Drop a comment below.